One of the biggest myths that I hear is if the government would just repay the money they stole from the Social Security Trust account. Well, here's the reality of that. When taxpayers pay in money, immediately that money goes out to this year's current retirees. If there is a surplus there, that surplus, because it cannot be invested in stocks and it can't be shoved under a mattress someplace or in a government closet, that money is invested in government bonds so that the trust fund actually has interest being earned. It's not that the government stole the money, they're putting that money at use and then paying it back as retirees require it, but they're paying it back with interest. That's one of the most common myths that I hear. Another common myth is, well, that money is in my name and I should get all that money back. That's not true. You're paying for today's retirees while you're working. Another myth that I think is quite often the case is people say, I'm gonna pay in way more than I'm ever gonna get back. And that's not true. Most retirees get more money back from the Social Security system than they pay in. And so those are some of the most common myths that I hear regularly, and I would add one fourth one. People would say if you would just tax the rich more, you could solve this problem. Why not just remove the cap and have every American pay Social Security taxes on all of their income? Well, that would only solve the problem for about 20 years out of that 75 years that we need to solve the problem. And I'm not a big fan of a 20% fix for a 100% dilemma. And so, and raising the tax that high doesn't really solve a problem because those affluent Americans are paying more in the system, and the system is regressive in how it pays out. So they're going to get a bigger benefit because they're actually contributing more. And so it's like a dog chasing its tail. That's not the end solution. And let's go back to the 1930s when the problem really first came to light and FDR decided that there should be a national pension system. Because that's really, when you think of Social Security, you should think in terms of a national pension. We had a problem in the United States where over 50% of Americans were senior Americans, older Americans, were living in poverty. Social Security has reduced that to today where only about 11 to 12% of seniors are living in poverty. Had my bill been passed into law, the Save Our Social Security Act, that would have reduced that down to less than 6% of seniors living in poverty. And so that was kind of the big benefit, is that it protected particularly the aged who might run out of their savings from actually starving to death or not being able to put heat on in their home or have electricity. So the program worked in that regard. If you were to wave a magic wand and try to redo this, you might not do it in the same way. But because it is now dependent on current workers paying for current retirees, I don't know that you're ever going to be able to transition out of this program. Instead, you're going to have to reform the program to meet current demographics. Fixing Social Security is a really big challenge because you have a group of seniors that are currently living off of a promise that was made to them during their working years when this money was pulled out of their paychecks to pay for their parents. We have to try to figure out how do we change the program while keeping the promise to current seniors or those close to retirement. And so you could do several types of things. One is you could address the COLA. You could change the COLA so the cost of living adjustment actually reflects more directly what seniors have to purchase for what they live. Today the COLA is based on wages, and that doesn't seem to make much sense because there's not a real correlation between a retired person and a working person. And so you would address the COLA. You would again gradually increase the age over time. You would have to change the payroll tax. Right now, the payroll tax captures wages of about 80% of Americans. Historically, they were capturing wages of 90% of Americans. But to do that, the cap would have to be raised from $160,000 or so today to $360,000, where people would pay Social Security taxes on wages all the way up to there. And then it should be indexed so that it captures 90% of the wages that are paid in the country. So as wages change and inflation occurs, that the program stays current with taxation. Because in reality, our parents paid more of their income into Social Security to protect their parents than what our children are paying today. Another thing that you could do, although the program is already partially means tested, you could means test it a little bit more for those Americans that are live an affluent lifestyle, maybe with incomes of $200,000, $300,000, or $400,000 in their retired years. You could reduce what's called the bend point at the higher level. Cut that by maybe 50% on the fourth bend point so that the benefits to highly affluent Americans begin to go down. If you would address age, if you address the COLA, if you'd address taxation, and if you would means test it a little bit further, I think you could get there.